The Island That Hides Gold. Somewhere, under the relentless reign of a forgotten island, lies a treasure that could change history or curse anyone who dares to claim it. The Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly beneath the gray morning sky. From the deck of the survey vessel Maria del Mar, Captain Jonathan Reed stared toward a smudge of green rising from the horizon, an emerald speck in a sea of steel blue, Cocos Island. He had been dreaming of it since childhood, reading about lost galleons and cursed gold in dog-eared adventure books. But now, standing on the bow, as the wind screamed and rain lashed his face, the island didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something alive, watching. Cocos Island, or Isla del Coco, as Costa Ricans call it, lies nearly 350 miles southwest of the Costa Rica mainland, far out in the Pacific Ocean. It's tiny, barely 8 miles long and 3 miles wide, yet it's drenched in over 300 inches of rainfall each year, making it one of the wettest places on Earth. Waterfalls thunder from its cliffs, rivers slice through its jungles, and clouds cling to its volcanic peaks like ghosts refusing to leave. To this day, Costa Ricans call it the Island of Miracles, but sailors have long known another name, the Island of the Lost Treasure. For over 2 centuries, explorers, pirates, and fortune seekers have believed that somewhere beneath its tangled canopy or inside its volcanic caves lies the Treasure of Lima, a legendary hoard of gold, silver, and jewels worth billions by modern standards. The story begins not on Cocos itself, but in a time of revolution, greed, and betrayal, the year 1820. The Fall of Lima. In the early 19th century, South America was in flames. Revolutionary armies led by men like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín were sweeping across the continent, toppling the Spanish colonial order that had ruled for 300 years. In Peru, the jewel of the Spanish Empire, panic was spreading. Lima, the city of kings, was about to fall. The viceroy at Peru, José de la Serna, knew the revolutionaries would soon seize the city. But the churches, monasteries, and the treasury of Lima held unimaginable wealth. Gold chalices, diamond-studded crosses, jeweled crowns, and enough silver coin to pay an army for decades. To lose it to the rebels would be catastrophic. So, under secrecy, the viceroy gave a desperate order. The treasure was to be moved by sea and kept safe until Spanish control could be restored. It was packed into 11 heavy chests and 113 bars of gold, and among the cargo was a life-size gold and jewel-encrusted statue of the Virgin Mary, said to be worth more than all the rest combined. But where to send it? The Spanish authorities feared the mainland ports were unsafe. Then someone proposed an audacious plan. Entrust it to a British sea captain, a man supposedly neutral and trustworthy, Captain William Thompson of the brig Mary Dear. The Betrayal. Thompson was a charming rogue, the kind of man who could drink with sailors and dine with governors in the same night. The Spanish loaded the treasure aboard his ship under the watch of armed guards. Thompson swore solemnly that he would deliver it to the safety of Panama City. But as soon as the Mary Dear left port, temptation overcame loyalty. He gathered his crew and made his infamous proposition. "Gentlemen, we hold in our hands the wealth of a dying empire. Shall we deliver it or keep it?"
They murdered the Spanish guards, slit the throats of the priests who had accompanied the treasure, and dumped the bodies into the Pacific. The Mary Deer turned west, toward the empty ocean, and vanished. For months, rumors swirled through the Pacific of a ghost ship carrying the stolen fortune, but the Spanish Navy eventually caught up. Thompson and a few crew were captured near the Gulf of Nicoya, and the Mary Deer was burned. Tortured for weeks, Thompson refused to reveal where he'd hidden the treasure. The only clue came when he begged to be marooned on a certain island instead of executed. The Spanish, curious, granted his wish. That island was Cocos. The Island of Exile. Cocos Island, even then, had a mythical reputation. Sailors spoke of strange lights, buried bones, and whispering forests. When the Spanish marooned Captain Thompson and his first mate there, they believed the two men might reveal the treasure's location. But days later, when a ship returned, the island was deserted. No trace of Thompson, no treasure, only footprints in the sand, leading toward the jungle and stopping abruptly near a waterfall. From that moment on, the island became a magnet for dreamers and desperados alike. Between 1821 and 1900, more than 300 recorded expeditions tried to find the Treasure of Lima. None succeeded. Some vanished. A few returned with fragments, gold coins or rusted chests half buried in the soil, but never the main hoard. Cocos gained an aura of supernatural resistance to discovery. Men who sought its gold often met strange fates, storms that rose out of clear skies, compasses spinning uselessly, sudden illness or madness. By the mid-19th century, it was said that the island itself guarded the treasure, that Thompson, or the spirits of the murdered priests, had cursed it. And yet, more came. Modern echoes of the hunt. Fast forward to the 20th century. The world had changed, but Cocos remained untouched. It became part of Costa Rica's national park system, a protected biological reserve teeming with sharks and rays and dense rainforest life. UNESCO would later declare it a World Heritage Site for its natural wonders. But even under government protection, the legend of the treasure didn't fade, it only evolved. In the 1930s, a German adventurer named August Gisler was granted official permission by Costa Rica to live on the island for 19 years. He built a house, grew crops, and dug. Using old Spanish maps, he cut tunnels across the island's volcanic soil, convinced he was only meters away from the hoard. He found a few coins, maybe from the Mary Deer, but nothing more. When he finally left, half mad and penniless, he told reporters, "The island gives you everything, except what you came for." Others followed. Ex-soldiers, American millionaires, even government-sponsored expeditions. Each time, the island resisted. Metal detectors malfunctioned. Excavations filled overnight with rain. Some explorers swore they heard voices in the forest, calling their names. By the 1970s, Cocos was no longer just a site of mystery. It was a symbol of humanity's greed and obsession, the kind of myth that keeps people awake at night, wondering if fortune or doom lies under the next stone.
The Treasure of Lima. Gold never truly disappears. It waits, patiently, testing the hearts of men who seek it. The map that shouldn't exist. In 1844, a faded parchment appeared in the hands of a Scottish sailor named John Keating, who claimed to have purchased it from a Peruvian monk.
The parchment was drawn with unfamiliar markings, jagged coastlines, symbols for waterfalls, and an X marked beneath the words Isla del Coco. In a corner, faint Latin words could still be read: Thesaurus Ecclesiae Limae, the treasure of the Church of Lima. Keating swore it was the original map drawn by Captain Thompson himself, the only record of where the Treasure of Lima had been buried before the Spanish caught him. The map showed a cave near the northern cliffs of Cocos, somewhere behind a large waterfall that emptied into a crescent-shaped cove. Skeptics dismissed it as forgery, but others believed. That map sparked a new wave of expeditions across the Pacific. The expeditions began. The first to follow Keating's clues was Benito Bonito, a half-mad Portuguese privateer already infamous for attacking Spanish gold ships. In 1827, Bonito's ship, Relampago, anchored off Cocos under the cover of a storm. Witnesses later claimed that his crew unloaded heavy crates at night and vanished into the trees. Weeks later, a British frigate captured the Relampago. Bonito was executed, but he never revealed what he had done on the island. Sailors swore he had reburied the Treasure of Lima deeper inland, or added his own pirate loot to it. For a century afterward, locals whispered about Bonito's Caves, a network of tunnels said to contain both the Lima gold and the pirates' ransom. By 1850, word had spread from Panama to San Francisco. Treasure hunters from the New World rushed south, obsessed with the idea of striking it rich. One of them, a British trader named James Forbes, arrived with laborers, tools, and dynamite. His journals, later discovered in a London archive, describe something unsettling. Quote, "The forest seems to whisper, the air never still. We dug near the base of a cliff, where the stream falls like a white snake into the sea. One of my men screamed that he saw eyes glowing within the rock. When we looked, there was nothing. But the next morning, the hole had collapsed in the night. Forbes left with nothing but fever and fear." End quote. A paradise guarded by nature. Those who've been to Cocos Island understand how such madness can take root. Even in modern times, it's one of the most isolated spots on Earth. There's no harbor, no airport, no permanent settlement. The only inhabitants are Costa Rican park rangers, marine scientists, and the endless chorus of seabirds that nest in its cliffs. The island's interior is nearly impenetrable. Giant ferns grow taller than men, vines twist around volcanic boulders, and torrential rain floods the ground daily. The soil hides countless caverns, perfect hiding places for treasure, but impossible to explore without risk of collapse. Even drones struggle to map it due to the constant storms and magnetic anomalies caused by the island's iron-rich rocks. Cocos is surrounded by some of the richest marine life on the planet. Hammerhead sharks, manta rays, whale sharks, and dolphins patrol its turquoise waters. For divers, it's paradise. For treasure hunters, it's purgatory. Every year, Costa Rica allows limited scientific expeditions, but treasure hunts are banned officially. Yet whispers persist that private teams operating under research permits still bring
The German who wouldn't give up. No one embodied that obsession more than August Gissler, the German engineer who spent almost 20 years digging on Cocos at the turn of the 20th century. He arrived in 1889, armed with two maps, one from the Keating copy, another supposedly from a Spanish monk's confession,
and an unwavering faith that he was destined to find the treasure. He dug over a dozen shafts through solid volcanic ground, using handmade tools, dynamite, and local laborers. He planted bananas and yucca to survive, even raised chickens. He married a Costa Rican woman who joined him on the island, though she reportedly begged him to leave after a year of constant storms and strange noises at night. Gisler's diary still survives in fragments in a San Jose archive. In one entry, dated 1904, he wrote, "There are nights when the wind sounds like chanting. I awake to see faint lantern lights moving through the forest, but there are no men here but me. I believe they guard it still." He found coins, a few gold chains, nothing else. When he finally left in 1908, broken and nearly blind, he told the Costa Rican government that the treasure would remain buried until the island itself decides to reveal it. Modern technology, old ghosts. In the late 20th century, technology reignited the fever. Satellite imaging, metal detection, and sonar mapping seemed poised to finally crack the mystery. In 1997, a team led by American explorer Bill Warren received special permission to scan portions of Cocos Island using ground-penetrating radar and magnetometers. They detected several large anomalies underground, dense metal readings near the North Cliffs and under the bed of a dried stream. Before they could begin excavation, torrential rains triggered landslides covering the entire site. The Costa Rican government, citing environmental protection, ordered them off the island. Warren left furious, claiming he had found proof that the Treasure of Lima existed, only to be thwarted by fate and bureaucracy. In a later interview, he said, "It's there. I saw the readings myself, but something always stops you. It's like the island protects itself." Cocos in the modern imagination. Today, Cocos Island is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and treasure hunting is illegal. Yet stories continue to surface of divers who see shapes beneath the coral that look like chests, of sonar pings that show metallic echoes buried deep under sediment. Even film crews, like those from National Geographic, have reported unexplained interference in equipment near certain bays. Hollywood has taken inspiration too. It's said that Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park drew from Cocos's isolation and mysterious beauty for his fictional Isla Nublar. But for historians and adventurers, no fiction could compete with the truth still hidden there. For 200 years, Cocos Island has resisted every attempt to strip it of its secret. Every clue leads deeper, not to gold, but to obsession, and to the realization that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. But then came one final discovery, one that would reignite everything. The Diver's Find. In 2013, a Costa Rican diver named Rafael Espinosa was exploring an underwater cave off Chatham Bay when his metal detector began to shriek. Beneath the sand, he unearthed a small encrusted gold medallion engraved with a faint cross and the words Santa Maria del Cusco, 1820. It matched the period of the Treasure of Lima. He turned the medallion over to authorities who authenticated it as genuine. The story made brief local news, then vanished. Officially, the government claimed it was of limited archaeological value. But to those who've chased the treasure for generations, it was proof. The gold of Lima is real, and it's still there.
The Cursed Expeditions. Men go to Cocos Island for gold, but it is not gold that the island gives. It is silence and madness. From the logbook of the schooner Roxanne, 1895. The Vanishing Crew of the Roxanne. In the late 19th century,
The legend of the Treasure of Lima was so widespread that even professional naval officers joined the fever. Among them was Captain Henry Bennett, a retired officer of the Royal Navy who had served in the Pacific during Britain's imperial campaigns. Bennett was methodical, rational, and famously skeptical of superstition. When he heard of Gissler's half-successes and the new maps circulating among Panama's sailors, he decided to launch his own scientific expedition to Cocos. In 1895, he set sail aboard the schooner Roxanne with 6 men, 2 British sailors, a Panamanian cook, a Costa Rican guide, and 2 hired diggers. They carried advanced instruments for the time, a theodolite, compasses, and detailed copies of Keating's map. The Roxanne anchored in Wafer Bay, the island's largest inlet. Bennett's last known message was a note left inside a bottle, discovered months later on a nearby beach. It read, "We have begun excavations near the waterfall. Strange lights in the forest at night. Animals behave oddly. The guide insists we should not dig here." When a rescue ship arrived 6 months later, there was no sign of the Roxanne's crew. The vessel's small boat was missing, and on the shore they found half-buried crates containing rusted digging tools. In a nearby cave, etched into the rock, were the words, "The eyes are watching." No human remains were ever found. The Curse of Cocos became infamous. Sailors refused to anchor near the island. Fishermen avoided its waters. Even Costa Rican officials grew wary, referring to it as La Isla Encantada, the Enchanted Island. In 1919, another group led by an American businessman, Frank McGraw, attempted to locate the treasure using detailed blueprints supposedly derived from Gissler's tunnels. McGraw's expedition was well funded, bringing over 40 laborers, supplies for 3 months, and even early electrical lighting equipment. They set up a camp in Chatham Bay and began drilling near an area where old Spanish markings were carved into stone. According to McGraw's surviving letters, now kept at the Smithsonian Archive, strange incidents began within days. Tools vanished overnight and reappeared miles away. Compass needles spun endlessly, defying all calibration. Workers reported hearing whispers inside the tunnels, calling their names. One morning, a worker named Luis Rivera was found dead, eyes open, expression frozen in terror, no sign of injury. After Rivera's death, panic spread. Half the men fled by rowboat, risking the violent seas. McGraw stayed another week before abandoning the search. He wrote in his final journal entry, "I came to Cocos seeking treasure. I leave believing it was never gold that was buried here, but souls." The Dark Years. The early 20th century saw few expeditions. World wars raged, empires fell, and Cocos returned to solitude. But the stories continued. In the 1940s, U.S. Navy ships patrolling the Pacific occasionally reported strange radar echoes around the island, metallic signatures that seemed to appear and vanish. During the Cold War, the CIA briefly studied the site as a potential submarine monitoring post, but logistical reports mention persistent equipment failure and geomagnetic instability. To this day, scientists debate whether the island's volcanic composition causes local magnetic interference. To believers, it's the treasure's curse, repelling technology just as it repelled men. The treasure that changed hands. There is one legend few outside Costa Rica know, the story of Bernardo O'Higgins' map. In 1952, a Chilean historian discovered correspondence between Bernardo O'Higgins, one of South America's great liberators, and Captain Thompson's supposed descendant. In one letter, dated 1839, O'Higgins mentions a deposit of sacred items from the time of Lima, and refers to a man who carried the secret to his grave save for one clue: the fall that weeps in two voices. Historians interpreted the fall that weeps in two voices as a reference to the twin waterfalls near Cocos's interior plateau. Few expeditions have ever reached them due to landslides and the island's unrelenting storms. Costa Rican park officials in private interviews have admitted that several unauthorized foreign groups have attempted to reach that exact area over the past 50 years, none of them successfully. The Storm of 1962. In 1962, a Costa Rican Navy patrol discovered an unregistered yacht, the Glory of the Sea, anchored illegally off Wafer Bay. On board were 5 men, all Americans, claiming to be marine researchers. The island's rangers escorted them ashore to question them, but that same night, a cyclonic storm hit Cocos with winds exceeding 90 miles per hour. The yacht broke anchor and was dashed against the rocks. When rescuers searched the next morning, the yacht was destroyed, and the 5 men had vanished. In the wreckage, authorities found maps marked with crosses over the inland waterfalls and notes referring to Thompson's Ridge. For decades, the names of the 5 men remained classified by Costa Rican officials. In 2011, one journalist finally obtained the list. All 5 were former U.S. Navy divers, veterans of the Korean War. None of them were ever found. To this day, locals say that when storms form around Cocos, the voices of the Glory of the Sea crew can be heard on the wind, calling through the rain.
The government seal. By the 1970s, the Costa Rican government had had enough. Too many expeditions, too much destruction of the ecosystem. In 1978, President Rodrigo Carazo Orio signed a decree making Cocos Island a national park, banning treasure hunting under any circumstance. But rumors persist that the ban was also political, that one 1976 expedition had come too close. That year, a team of engineers, led by Dr. Miguel Brenes, brought advanced metal detection gear to map underground formations. After 3 weeks, they located what appeared to be a massive metallic anomaly beneath 30 feet of rock near a waterfall basin. Before excavation could begin, the Costa Rican government abruptly revoked their permit. Their reports were sealed. Brenes later claimed that officials from outside the country visited the site, possibly British or American agents, and the area was closed indefinitely. When a journalist asked Brenes in 1983 whether he truly believed they'd found the Treasure of Lima, he said, "I can't say if it was gold, but it was metal, and it wasn't natural. Whatever's under that mountain, someone doesn't want it found." The return to the island. The rain had not stopped in 3 days. From the deck of the research vessel Aquila, American marine archaeologist Dr. Jonathan Reed stared at the silver curtain of water that veiled Cocos Island in the distance. He had read every map, every logbook, every legend. For him, this was not just another expedition. It was the culmination of a lifetime. Reed wasn't a treasure hunter in the traditional sense. His PhD at Stanford had focused on colonial trade routes in the Pacific, but his obsession had always been the same: the Treasure of Lima.
He'd spent 15 years gathering archival material from Madrid, Lima, and London, including the forgotten Brennus report, long sealed by the Costa Rican government. The report confirmed what few dared whisper aloud: a dense metallic mass beneath the northern waterfall basin, artificial geometry, dimensions consistent with storage vault construction. It was all the proof Reed needed. He wasn't here to steal. He wanted to document, to prove to the world that the Treasure of Lima was real and that history had buried the truth under superstition. He came with a small team of specialists: geologist Dr. Elaine Carter, sonar technician Luis Morales, and diver Captain Sam Torres, a weathered Costa Rican with salt in his veins. They had 5 days. That's all the government would allow. Into the Green Heart. The Aquila anchored in Wafer Bay. Rain drummed endlessly on the canopy as the team disembarked, hauling radar scanners and portable sonar units through the mud. Carter looked up at the wall of jungle ahead. "Feels alive, doesn't it?" Reed smiled. "It's been alive longer than any of us." The trek took 6 hours through twisted vines and rivers swollen with rain. The GPS failed halfway in, just as the stories warned. Even Morales, who'd laughed off the curse, grew uneasy when his compass needle began spinning aimlessly. They reached the twin waterfalls at dusk. Mist drifted like smoke around them, glowing orange in the dying light. Behind one fall, a dark cleft in the rock yawned, exactly where Thompson's diary had hinted. The air grew heavy. Birds fell silent. They set up camp under the overhang. The team worked through the night, scanning the ground beneath the falls. Reed watched the sonar screen flicker, static, interference. Then a pulse of color appeared. A solid mass, 20 meters below the surface, rectangular, metallic. "Jesus," Morales whispered. "It's there." The descent. At dawn, they began to dig. The ground was slick volcanic stone mixed with clay and roots, the work slow and dangerous. By the 3rd day, they'd opened a narrow shaft leading to a subterranean chamber where water trickled through the rock. The readings were stronger now. A magnetic anomaly pulsed beneath the chamber floor, steady and deliberate, as if something were breathing. Captain Torres volunteered to go first. He strapped on his headlamp, descended the rope, and vanished into darkness. Minutes passed. "Sam?" Reed's voice echoed down the shaft. Static hissed through the comm, then a faint voice. "You'll want to see this." Reed and Carter followed. They found themselves in a natural cavern, walls slicked with mineral deposits that shimmered faintly gold in the lamplight. At the center of the cavern, buried under rock and coral-like crust, was a shape too symmetrical to be natural, an iron-bound chest half fused into the stone. Reed's heart pounded. He brushed away sediment, revealing carvings on the wood, a cross flanked by serpents, the seal of the Lima Cathedral. Carter knelt beside it. "It's real! My God, it's real!" But before they could celebrate, the earth trembled. A deep groan rolled through the cavern like a giant exhaling beneath them. "Time to go," Torres barked. "Now!" The collapse. They scrambled up the rope as water surged from cracks in the floor. Within seconds, the cavern began to flood. Reed was the last out, hauling himself into daylight as the ground shuddered. The entire waterfall shifted, sending torrents roaring over the dig site. When the shaking stopped, the entrance was gone, buried again under tons of rock. Reed collapsed on the ground, soaked and shaking. They had touched it, just for a moment, the proof of 2 centuries of obsession. Carter stared at him. "Did you get the photos?" He looked at his camera. The lens had cracked in the fall, the memory card fried. Every screen showed The return. When they reached the Aquila 2 days later, Costa Rican authorities were waiting. Their permit had expired. Officials confiscated their equipment and recordings for verification. Reed protested, but the documents vanished into bureaucracy. Weeks later, back in San Jose, he tried to access his data again. His computers wouldn't recognize the drives. The files were there, but empty, replaced by unreadable code. When he returned to the United States, Reed submitted a report to National Geographic. The magazine declined to publish, citing insufficient evidence. But months later, he received a package with no return address. Inside the capsule was a single gold coin, stamped with a cross and the inscription Santa Maria del Cusco, 1820, the same as Rafael Espinosa's medallion. And beneath it, a note written in careful, old-fashioned script. The island remembers. Do not wake it again. A legacy of silence. Dr. Reed retired from fieldwork soon after. He donated the coin anonymously to the Costa Rican National Museum, where it remains unlisted in the public catalog. When journalists asked him years later whether he truly found the Treasure of Lima, he only smiled and said, "We found something, but it wasn't gold I came back with." Rumors persist that Reed's expedition uncovered more than they admitted. Some believe the Costa Rican government sealed off the area permanently, citing environmental hazards. Others whisper that foreign investors quietly funded the retrieval of certain artifacts before the site collapsed completely. Satellite images show new landslides near the twin waterfalls, nature closing its wounds once more. The final truth. Today, Cocos Island remains as it always was, shrouded in mist, untouched by time. Divers still visit its reefs, scientists still study its sharks, and dreamers still whisper of treasure beneath the green ocean canopy. But no one who's touched its heart has ever tried to return. Some say the island guards the gold because it was born from sin, the blood of priests, the greed of empires, the betrayal of a man who could not resist temptation. Others believe it's something simpler, that Cocos Island is a mirror. It reflects what you bring to it. Greed brings ruin, curiosity brings wonder, and reverence, perhaps, brings peace. In the end, the Treasure of Lima may not be a pile of gold beneath the jungle. It may be the island itself, untouched, eternal, and defiant of man's endless hunger to own what cannot be owned. Epilogue. In 2024, a deep-sea drone mapping the ocean floor near Cocos sent back a strange final transmission before losing contact. The image lasted only a second, a flash of light beneath 300 feet of water, forming the shape of a cross glinting in darkness. The timestamp read 3:33 a.m. The feed went black. The drone was never recovered. When technicians enhanced the final frame, they noticed something behind the cross, a human face reflected in gold, staring back at the camera. No diver had been there. No crew was missing. Only the ocean, endless and still. And somewhere beneath it, Cocos Island watched, waiting.